Big Finish ended 2023 with part 1 of what looks set to be an epic final story for the Seventh Doctor. This is the Seventh Doctor Adventures The Last Day Part 1, which has now culminated this summer in The Last Day Part 2. Basically, these two box sets comprise of 12 episodes where the Seventh Doctor has decided to become the ultimate dictator of the universe. His Machiavellian schemes have finally come to fruition, and he has installed Ace as the president of Earth, who is now running a fascist regime on Earth, as you do. And this has resulted in another alternative version of Ace, a younger Ace, who has now been assembling a team of characters from across the Seventh Doctor's life in order to take him down. These characters include, but are not limited to, Mel, Bernie Summerfield. You've got Mother from a Third Doctor Big Finish box set from like 10 years ago. You've got Hex. You've got Vienna Salvatore. You've got Lysandra. You've got Garundel. You've got the Jeffrey Beavers Master. And if you're thinking this all sounds a bit convoluted and impregnable, that was one of the main issues with The Last Day Part 1. However, convoluted and impregnable are those are two issues that I had with the box set, but the chief one was that there was just no plot in The Last Day Part 1. Basically, Ace spends about 5 episodes out of the 6 episodes assembling a team of characters, including Kane from Dragonfire. This is an alternate Kane who did not die in season 24 in that story. Assembling all of these characters in order to take the Seventh Doctor down, but there was no real sense of what the end game was. Like, how were they going to take the Seventh Doctor down? What actually was the plan here? Why did you need these characters and their specific skill sets? There was no actual plot here. One of the episodes was the Seventh Doctor musing around in this new glorious world that he's created, but we don't really know what caused him to tip over the edge. We don't even really know how he took over the universe. Practically, we don't really know what happened here. I kind of let it slide because I was hoping that The Last Day Part 2 would rectify a lot of these issues. It would be the last 6 episodes of this 12-part story. You wouldn't really judge the Daleks' master plan just from parts 1 to 6. You wouldn't really judge the War Games just from parts 1 to 5. Obviously, if those parts aren't enjoyable, that's its own issue, but as a story overall, hopefully it kind of pans out and works out. Does the end justify the means that it took to get there? And with The Last Day Part 2, I can now safely say that despite all of the talent involved, despite Matt Fitton and Guy Adams being writers who I otherwise really, really like, you've got a really talented cast of actors here as well, The Last Day Part 2 does not stick the landing. In fact, it is almost comically convoluted and so lacking in substance that I think they almost had to try to make it that way, because there's no character arc, so there's no sense of closure for about 95% of the cast, and even the actual ending, which is meant to tie into the TV movie, doesn't make sense even within its own setting and its own established rules. It's kind of bonkers that you have these 12 episodes and so little actually happens in them of actual worth. The main example I gave in the Last Day Part 1 review was that they repeated the same cliffhanger twice. There was a big epic cliffhanger where these characters were about to die, and then it cuts to, at the beginning of the next episode, an entirely different environment, an entirely different cast of characters, because the group is all split up doing their own separate thing, and then the episode ends with the same two characters in the same cliffhanger being like, oh no, we're about to die again, and then the cliffhanger just happens again. That was honestly just what happened in 2 cliffhangers in The Last Day Part 1. And The Last Day Part 2 does something kind of similar, where honestly the cliffhanger ending to Part 8 was genuinely a actual awesome epic cliffhanger revelation moment that had me thinking this could really redeem the story. And then the next episode starts with a completely different set of characters, completely different location. We don't immediately follow up on that cliffhanger, which in and of itself is not an issue, but then that cliffhanger's resolution gets resolved off-screen. The implications of it, in terms of casting, in terms of the characters, in terms of what the fallout of that cliffhanger was, it never happens. Nothing happens in it. Speaking of nothing happening, let's play a clip from The Last Day Part 2, which involves a bunch of companions of the Seventh Doctor from the Big Finish audio dramas who helped the Doctor fight off the Elder Gods in prior box sets, in prior story arcs. It's tough to explain. Let's play a clip from The Last Day Part 2.
A what? A quantum possibility engine. Arriving to save the day any time now, apparently. It's sensitive to local probability fluctuations, but it's designed to work on this solar system.
Okay, what does it do?
The engine can rewrite timelines, tap into alternate realities, create and counter paradoxes. It'll activate when we burst the president's bubble, when everyone's perceived reality is in open conflict with the real timeline. Fixing your memories? Just the start.
My life. Everything fits. I didn't even know the gaps were there. I remembered snapshots, but they never went any deeper. It's like I just woke up.
The president's been papering over your past.
I didn't meet Tommy hiking in Norway. We were there with actual Vikings. We met Beowulf.
Great, you're not too disorientated. You can cope, because you could always cope.
And the doctor? Where's the doctor?
We'll get to that.
You say the whole planet's affected. Like me.
The Krasi diffuser has changed everyone's perception for the last 5 years. Different memories, different actions. Earth's timeline has deviated from what it should be.
Which is where the QPE comes in. It'll feed on that paradox. Our job was to get it working here, where it'll have maximum effect. Earth's important.
Pretty much all the Doctor's friends either originate from Earth or visited at some point and helped save it.
The bad guys want to keep the whole planet off the board. You with it.
You said you were with Ace. The right Ace. The one me and Tommy knew. She gave you this mission.
Picked us up in a TARDIS.
I remember the TARDIS.
Stole this gizmo. Gave us a souped-up time ring to breach the planet's defenses.
When you say bad guys, the president, she's one of these other potentials. Another Ace. A paradox, right?
You're good. Yep, she's the other side. An interloper from a parallel lifetime.
Now, did any of that make sense to you? And you're probably thinking, oh, it's because I don't know the characters. It's because I don't know who these characters are from previous box sets. And yes, that is a part of it. But a big part of it is that because nothing really makes sense here within its own, like, 3-act structure, within the actual logistics of the own story. Like I mentioned, there's such a massive, huge cast of characters, and every episode, they keep adding more characters to it, including multiple Seventh Doctors, and they don't resolve hardly any of them. Like, half of the characters just disappear from the story. Like, they get no closure. Despite, like, this meant to be, like, a 12-part story with a big cast of characters that's all about closure for the Seventh Doctor. You know, it's in the name, The Last Day. It's just so strange how many characters just, like, get introduced and then just disappear off the face of the earth. And, like, I don't know what the end game for this story is. I don't know what Ace, who's assembling this crack team of characters from across the Doctor's history, what her actual plan is to stop the Doctor. There's no actual, this is the goal, this is what we're focusing on, this is, you know, this doesn't happen in this story. The audience aren't made privy to it. And when it comes to the actual conclusion of the story, I listened to the scene, like, several times. I couldn't tell you how the story ended. I couldn't, like, I genuinely have no idea how the Doctor, like, was defeated. This evil alternate version of the Doctor, who we don't know why he turned evil, we don't know how he turned, it just happens, and that's the premise of the story. Like, you have 12 episodes and you can't explain this? Like, I just don't get it. And there's meant to be a whole thing where the ending, minor spoilers for The Last Day Part 2, but it's kind of in the premise of it, it's the appeal of it. It's leading into the events of the TV movie regarding the Master winding up on Skaro. However, the whole point of The Last Day is that this is an alternate timeline that's going to get wiped and fixed at the end of it. So the Master gets taken to Skaro in this alternate timeline, and then the timeline gets wiped. So it doesn't lead to the TV movie then, because the Master didn't go to Skaro in the end, because that timeline doesn't exist anymore. Like, it didn't happen. What? It's so... And then the Sontarans are in it as well. I don't even know what happened to them. Like, and a lot of it is like, I don't know who Mother is. I don't know who Sally Morgan is. I don't know who Hex is. Like, I don't know who Roz is. I get that. But in terms of just this story, I don't know what's happening in just this story. Parts like 11 and 12 are centered around this big battle for Gallifrey that's happening, but I don't know who they're fighting. Like, there's, like, background noise of, like, blasters and lasers and stuff. I don't know who they're fighting. Like, are they meant to be some incorporeal form, or are they just soldiers with... It's never established. There's no sense of place, there's no sense of character, there's no sense of structure or arcs. Like, the fundamentals for The Last Day have just gone out the window here. I don't know what's happening. And like, it's not just a case of I don't know the characters. This past week, I've listened to Torchwood Soho Ascension, the latest Torchwood box set from James Goss. I don't know any of those characters, but that box set is like one of my favourites of the year. The lack of prerequisite can be an issue, but in this case, that wasn't the issue. In The Last Day Part 2, I just don't know what the plot is. I don't know. I know what's driving people. They want to try and save the universe from this alternate Doctor, but like, I don't know what their end game is. Is their plan literally to just gather a group of people and then just confront him in a room? Was that the plan? I don't get it. Like, and I know that so much of this is like meant to be a sequel to the Big Finish, like Dark Universe box set with the Seventh Doctor and Ace, and I know that it's like meant to be a sequel to the Quantum Probability Engine and stuff. Like, I get that, but it's like, that's not the issue here. The issue is that you have all of these characters with nothing to do, with no sense of urgency about them, who are given arcs that don't exist. Many of the characters just disappear from the story completely. I don't know what's like the immediate stakes of the story are, and I don't know what people's end game is. It just kind of feels like a 12-part story that's just been made up as it goes along. And then in the end, it's just it just doesn't amount to anything in the end. Like, the performances are really strong. I love Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred in this. I love all of the cast in this. Jeffrey Beavis is terrific, but like, you know, there's only so much material here. Like, I think that there's some really great dialogue every so often, but the actual plot that's driving, like the actual plot that the dialogue is in, like, it just doesn't amount to anything. And I just, yeah, this is a baffling release. Like, I love the Seventh Doctor, I love the premise of the story, but the way they handled it, and these guys, Matt Fitton and guys, these are really brilliant, talented writers. I just don't know what went wrong here, unfortunately. These are very good creatives, but with this one, I don't even want to say that they bit off more than they can chew, but there were just some very, very, very strange, like, fundamental issues here that just never got addressed. I don't know what happened here. So, having listened to both parts of The Last Day Part 1 and The Last Day Part 2, I can safely say that this whole saga is a very, very safe skip. Even if you know what a hex is, you know, even if you are the biggest Seventh Doctor and Bernie Summerfield fan, I honestly don't think you're going to get anything out of this. I can't imagine this being a rewarding listen on, like, almost any level, other than just kind of being amazed that it exists in its current form. Yeah, I didn't like it.